Hi, this is Rabbi Abby Sharofsky, Director of Intergroup Relations for the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. I'm here today to highlight an amazing effort that's been going on in the Silver Spring community for, I believe, that most of the pandemic, but our guests here will tell us. It's an amazing collaboration between Kemp Mill Synagogue and the Silver Spring Christian Reformed Church. And I'm so glad to have here today Dina Levitt, liaison to the food pantry from Kemp Mill Synagogue, Pastor Doug Bratt, the pastor of Silver Spring Christian Reformed Church, and Jennifer Renkema, the food pantry director. Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about the food pantry? How long has it been operating? Who are you serving? And what is this effort that's happening right in our neighborhood?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This is really a special opportunity for us to share this and tell people a bit about the story of what's happening in the Kemp Mill neighborhood. So the food pantry at Silver Spring Christian Reformed Church has actually been operating for about 7.5 years. But pre-pandemic, we were open once a month. But heading into the pandemic last March, all of a sudden things turned on their ear very quickly. And we pivoted and decided to try doing weekly distributions outdoors, packing food ahead of time. And we thought we would do that for about a month or two, and then that would probably be about the end of it. And here we are a year later, and we are still operating weekly. And we plan to continue doing that at least for the next several months. Before the pandemic, we were serving about 95 to 100 households a month. We have been averaging about 750 households a week for the last couple of months.
How does that all happen? How much food does that take?
That actually takes a lot of food. We've been handing out probably an average about 20,000 pounds of food every week. We have a lot of wonderful partnerships in the community that have allowed us to get food throughout this time. We have always been partners with the Capital Area Food Bank, and throughout this time, they have been immensely supportive, have done everything they can to support their partners. And we are getting roughly maybe half, maybe a little less than half of our shelf-stable foods from the food bank at this point. The other major partner that we've had for shelf-stable foods has been Montgomery County, but none of that is quite enough to cover all of the need. A lot of our support for produce has come from the Kemp Mill neighborhood and the Kemp Mill Synagogue. We've also just really appreciated many people giving their own donations. We get fluctuations in the number of people coming. And a couple of weeks ago, we suddenly had 100 more households than we had expected. And so it makes a difference to have those donations coming in.
Dina, you started to tell me a little bit about how you got involved in this.
I live around the corner from the church. And so we pull out into the traffic of the food pantry every Tuesday. At the beginning of the pandemic, when the numbers started increasing, the traffic started increasing. And then I started posting on Facebook and people started chipping in. And then it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger because people feel helpless in the scope of the need, and everybody wants to help and doesn't know how. Sending me $25 on PayPal or $36 on Venmo is something. And it's amazing how generous people are. I posted saying that we're really aiming towards $550 worth of produce every week now because of the increased numbers. And somebody sent us $550 that week to cover the produce that week. And it's humbling.
I think one of the things that strikes me every week is the juxtaposition of abundant food coming into the pantry and abundant resources coming into the pantry, and then a parking lot full, more than one parking lot full of cars and families waiting for food because they do not have abundance right now. And those things side by side are a tension that we feel and we live with every week. And you can't forget people's needs when you see that every single week.
How has faith played a role in this?
I think what it's done for me is to constantly see God's goodness and God's faithfulness, to constantly remember that God is in charge of this project and not us. Because if it were up to our little congregation, it would have been over months and months ago. It would have been over at the beginning of last May because I had money and I had no access to food. And then we were put in touch with Shalom Kosher Market, and they have been helping us order food when we can't get it from other sources. And things just keep coming one after another, and it's not from us.
Pastor Doug, what does this look like from the pulpit?
During those first 6 to 8 months, almost no one was actually worshiping on Sunday within the building. But what we thought of and we came to think of as the food pantry, the preparations, the packing and distribution as a form of worship. This was a place where we could come together as a congregation with volunteers from various faith communities to offer our service to God, our love for God and our neighbors in very concrete ways.
Dina, what has the interfaith collaboration meant to the Kemp Mill community?
Being part of the larger community, being part of the neighborhood as not Kemp Mill Synagogue neighborhood, but Kemp Mill and Silver Spring at large and Wheaton has been extraordinary.
One of the blessings of my work is I get to start to work with people of different faiths before something happens. And but also see the blessings that come out when we come together in times of great need and the relationships that are formed and continue on after that. And from what I'm hearing in this conversation, it seems like this is not just one community helping to feed another community. This is truly a whole community that is formed in something new and beautiful. And it's really lovely to hear everyone talk about this in a way that is not just about feeding those people or feeding the other, but really recognizing the humanity in everyone, and that this is an act of chesed. This is an act of of God's love